Hello everybody, and welcome back to Stately Vaughan Manor. And today, as promised, I went down below the cellars here at Stately Vaughan Manor and crept into the vault of ancient science fiction. And there, evading the mysterious robotic guardians, I grabbed as much old science fiction as I could and I ran back up here to share them with you. Now that I'm up here, first of all, I'm going to apologize ahead of time. My neighbor here on the estate has decided that he's going to make a bunch of noise. I really should kick him off the estate. I allow him to live here out of the generosity of my heart, and he just loves to make noise. He particularly loves to make noise when I'm trying to do a video. So, my apologies for my noisy neighbor. But, let's get on to the science fiction. So, as I was pulling these up, it kind of made me think about guys like Isaac Asimov, all those other guys that are very famous science fiction writers. Ray Bradbury, deservedly a famous science fiction writer, science fiction and fantasy. All of those guys that have survived from the golden age of science fiction and are still very well respected today. Not everybody was able to make it. And I have a couple authors here that you've probably never heard of. But you're going to hear about them today. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about them so that they will not be completely forgotten. And let me know if you have heard of any of these guys before. First person I'm going to talk about is Murray Leinster. He wrote a lot. This is just a few of the books I have of Murray Leinster. He was a science fiction author who wrote short stories and short novels in the pulps, and he lasted all the way up through the paperback era. Famously, I say that, I'm stretching famously, he wrote the novel of The Time Tunnel. The Time Tunnel was an old television show which wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was kind of entertaining. It was probably at the same level of Land of the Giants. Was it Land of the Giants? I think so. But it was from that era, which was late 60s, I believe. So yeah, he did the book of that. But he also did all kinds of other stories. We have here Operation Terror, about an alien invasion, or was it? We got The Brain Stealers with a classic science fiction-y cover. Look at that. And speaking of classic covers, we've got Creatures of the Abyss. That is a classic 60s science fiction cover. We've got Miners in the Sky. This will just give you kind of an idea of the kind of stuff this guy wrote. We got Checkpoint Lambda. Checkpoint Lambda. That's pretty cool. And probably his masterpiece. It's not really a masterpiece, but probably his best book, in my opinion, is The Forgotten Planet. And that's just, look at that cover. A very accurate depiction of what happens in this book. And it has this great blurb on the cover here. Leinster, the dean of modern science fiction, says Time magazine. Maybe he was the dean at one time, but no longer the dean, I don't think. So, yeah, there is a good example of a fella that spent his whole life writing, and now I don't think anyone ever talks about him. I don't know if anybody reads his books. They're entertaining. I have to give him that. I mean, he's never going to win any awards for best writer in the world, or maybe he did, I don't know. But he is entertaining. Some of his stories, not all of them, but some of them kind of hold up, and a lot of them are really worth reading, and I'm kind of sad that he's been kind of forgotten. He wrote a story called A Logic Named Joe, which sort of predicted computers and the internet. So I guess we can blame all of our internet troubles on Murray Leinster. So that was cool to dig all that stuff back up. Another fella I grabbed was a couple Gardner Fox books, The Hunter Out of Time and The Warrior of Larn. Double L's, Larn. And the reason I grabbed these is because Gardner Fox isn't famous for writing paperbacks, though he did that. He's famous for writing the Justice League. He did all of the early issues of the Justice League. So, you know, of course I had to bring these up because I love the Justice League. This I just grabbed because of the title. You know, old science fiction didn't always accurately predict the future. Sometimes it did. Those Idiots from Earth. I know nothing about this book. I just saw it down there and just had to grab it and bring it up and share it with you just because of that. So that was cool. This one also I grabbed. This is another thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about Looking Back from the Year 2000 by Mac Reynolds. Yeah, they put him into a hypnotic trance in a sealed room to cure him. Then the house burnt down and he was forgotten. Until he awoke 40 years later and dared not believe what he saw from the year 2000. You see, when I was a kid, the year 2000 and the 21st century was the future, you know? And I was excited because I was going to be, when I was an old man, I would be able to see the future, you know? The 21st century, what it would be like. Oh, the wonders I would see. Man, what a disappointment. Man, I think that's one of the reasons I like old science fiction. You know, I loved their visions of the future, particularly because the real future is just lame. I mean, you know, we can't even keep the power on when it snows. I mean, we got some cool gadgets, you know, we can go on the YouTube, but man, we should have done better. We really should have. Onward. I also want to mention this guy just real quick. You know, Edgar Rice Burroughs, who I talked a little bit about on the Foundations of Science Fiction video, and I'm probably going to do a couple of videos just on him. He was very popular, particularly in the 1960s. They kind of had a boom where he came back into popularity. Now, when he first started out, there were many writers. Once he was in the pulps, and once his Tarzan stories got famous, and once his Mars stories got famous, a lot of other writers started writing in the tradition of Edgar Rice Burroughs. And one of those guys was Otis Adelbert Klein. And while Edgar Rice Burroughs was the master of adventure, Otis Adelbert Klein was more like the moderately talented intern of adventure. And he wrote a few stories, and this first one, man, Jan of the Jungle. Now, of course, the only thing I can think of when I see this book is I can't help thinking of Jan from the Brady Bunch and how much better this book would be if Jan from the Brady Bunch were the hero. But it's not. We're stuck with this other doofus guy, Jan of the Jungle. According to the back, Jan of the Jungle is his name. Raised in strange isolation with his only companion, a great ape. Jan escaped to find himself alone against the jungle. There, his muscles and ingenuity were to be challenged to their utmost by the mystery of a strange lost city and the rescue of a periled princess. Wow, what a great plot! I've never heard of anything like that before. And of course, if the story's not great enough, you have this wonderful cover. Just look at that with the giant hamster there. You see the giant hamster? And Jan, this naked fella, who is apparently nearsighted because he's got a bow and arrow. And instead of fighting the hamster from a distance like you do with bows and arrows, he just walks right up. You know, I guess his eyesight isn't that good. Now, this woman here, obviously a friend of the hamster, has to get away as quickly as she can. That's wise. Get away from this guy, Jan. He's a creep. So there's that. And of course, his Otis Adelbert Klein's most famous story, or one of his famous stories, was Maza of the Moon. I actually read Maza of the Moon. It's not terrible. It is kind of terrible, but it's sort of entertaining. But the thing that makes this book worth it, I don't know if you can tell, but that's a Frazetta cover. That's an early Frank Frazetta cover. Frank Frazetta makes everything good. There you go. And of course, Adelbert Klein's epic was his Venus books. And all these Venus books have Roy Krinkle covers. Roy Krinkle, I don't know if you remember him, but he was a great paperback cover artist. Sometimes even he phoned it in. This seems a little phoned in to me. This is the first book, I believe, The Planet of Peril, the first book in the Titanic trilogy. Then we've got The Prince of Peril. Now this cover is great. That is a master cover. Look at that. Beautiful. And then we have another awesome cover for The Port of Peril. There you go. Now I read these 3 books again. Not great, but kind of fun. I have to say the man wrote some fun stuff. He also was the literary agent of Robert E. Howard, who was a far superior writer by far. In the Edgar Rice Burroughs line, I also have here Gulliver of Mars. Now, I got this book because Jay Shay, yes, it's all his fault, Jay Shay, did a great review of this. Jay Shay, the man who has kept Marsathon alive, did a bunch of reviews of the John Carter books. He did this one. He did another Mars book, old-timey Mars story. And the review for this made me think, man, I have got to hunt down a copy of this for myself. So I did. And this could have been an inspiration for A Princess of Mars. That alone makes it worth getting. And it just looks so awesome, and I can't wait to read it. This is another Frazetta cover. Frazetta makes everything good. And there we go. Look how great that looks. I can't wait to read that. I literally cannot wait. I've got some other stuff I'm lined up to read first. I wanted to throw this up here just because this is a preview here, guys. I'm going to be doing a Robert E. Howard video, not the next video, but the video after that. I think is going to be the Robert E. Howard video. But this is his only interplanetary adventure, and I found this down in the vault. This was actually the first Robert E. Howard novel that I read. I read this before I read Conan. I knew of Conan beforehand from the comic book. I've been reading Conan comics since, I started to read. But this is the first book I read, and it blew my mind. It was so good. It's not really the best book in the world, but when you're a little kid, this is fantastic. And this was written in the tradition of Edgar Rice Burroughs. But Robert E. Howard, he couldn't copy anybody. When he took an idea, Robert E. Howard made it a Robert E. Howard story. He could not take just any old idea and just make it middling or, he made everything he touched great. Even his crap was great. Even that was good. But this particularly, it's a lot of fun. Almeric. Man, that brings back memories. Also, when I was down there, I grabbed one of my favorite novels. I've got a couple copies here. I didn't mention this guy in the Foundation of Science Fiction video, and I should have. That would be Clifford D. Simak. And this is my favorite novel by him. It is a classic. This is really good, guys. This is City by Clifford D. Simak. Guys, if you have not read this book, read this book about the future and dogs and robots and how they end up inheriting the world. It's amazing. I read this when I was in my early 20s. I must have been 21 or 22, so it was back in the day. And it instantly became one of my favorite novels of all time. And what a great cover. Look at that. Look at that cover. That's great. I have a hardback copy of this, a book club edition. Not as good a cover, but kind of cool in its own trippy way. Yeah? Look at that dog. He's just hanging out, going, what the heck am I doing here on this book cover? City. Read City by Clifford D. Simak, man. That you will not be disappointed if you find a copy of this book. And you can find copies of this. They probably won't look this cool, but you can definitely find copies of that. And another couple things I'm going to throw out here. I know it's already 15 minutes, but I want to throw out this because when I was a little kid, I loved the Twilight Zone, and I found a copy of this book. Rod Serling made short stories of some of his scripts so he could put them in these paperbacks. And actually, the short story versions are actually better than the scripts in a lot of cases. And I found a copy of this exact copy I found when I was a kid, and of course lost it because I was a kid. And then I managed to find a pristine, almost mint condition copy of it. Stories from the Twilight Zone. I read it last March when our world started to become the Twilight Zone. And then, of course, I couldn't leave well enough alone. I had to also get new stories of the Twilight Zone. And if that wasn't cool enough, I had to get more stories from the Twilight Zone. Guys, I love the Twilight Zone. They're actually not bad. If you can ever find copies of those, definitely check them out. And before I go, I want to throw these up because back in the day, these are vintage Vault of Science Fiction. They had these double novels that came out, Ace double novels, 35 cents, and you get 2 books. Look at how cool those are. This one's even better looking. The Edge of Time. Flip it over. Look at that. And I particularly like this one. This is the Atlantic Abomination with all these dudes carrying their huge alien overlord. Flip it over, you have this guy in a transparent rocket ship, and that just looks like a bad idea. So yeah, I dug those guys out. I dug more stuff out, but I'm pushing the time here. I don't want to keep you all day. I hope you enjoyed my treasures that I brought up from the vault. Coming soon, I'm going to be doing my top 5 classic fantasy books, which could also be called the foundation of fantasy. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it, but one of those 2 things. Let me know which one is better. And then I'm going to be doing the Robert E. Howard video because he is one of my very favorite writers, and more people should talk about Robert E. Howard. So there you go. Kind of like a vault book haul here. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed your time here at Stately Vaughan Manor, and I hope to see you again next time. Take care, guys.